Go tell Aunt Rhody. Go tell Aunt Rhody. Go tell Aunt Rhody that everybody's dead.
Welcome to episode 6 of the Dangerous ASMR podcast. Today we have another interview and another very special guest. That man's name is Todd C.
Hello!
And of course, like always, I have my reliable, lovely, beautiful co-host, Ira Boggle.
Hi.
Listen
Hi,
to how
Boggle.
listen to how shy she is. Let's just take a moment to appreciate how shy Boggle is right
Oh
now.
my god, Steven, I hate you. I'm leaving right now.
No, you gotta stay. I'm gonna throw you under the bus for Jekyll and Hyde.
Oh yes, you do. You gotta blame me for the reason nobody likes part 15. Nobody likes what you've done with Deborah, and it's all my fault.
Woohoo!
Never take advice from me. That's advice number 1 when you're writing. Don't take advice from me.
And like I said, we will be talking to this man for the next, I don't know amount of minutes. But we will not only be talking about his very awesome Jekyll and Hyde series, but other work he's done. And kind of a little bit of history and kind of a little bit in history of it. Yeah, I'm super excited for this. This is something I've been wanting to do since since I had this idea, honestly, to have this podcast.
Yeah, this is the only reason he created this podcast, was to talk to yell at you about your series.
Yeah, I have 3 reasons I made this podcast. 1, so Dangerous makes Alpha the canon name for the Yandere werewolf. To get people to send me scripts for up and coming episodes, so I can listen. So when they come out, I can be like, oh, I knew that was gonna happen. And then 3, so I can talk to Todd. Yeah, we're gonna start out with pimping out DA stuff, and then we will get on to the interview. Well, ladies and gentlemen, like every week, because we are super consistent, we make no mistakes. We just like telling you the same thing over and over again. Here are all the places where you can interact with Dangerous and other Dangerous ASMR media. All of these links will be listed below, so that way you don't need to yell at us and be like, "Where's our YouTube channel? Where's our Twitter? Where's our Redbubble? Where's our Discord?" It's like it's all in the bottom. Just calm down and read the description, please. Although, if you want to yell at us, please do, because then that makes the video more popular.
Yeah, if you guys don't want to leave likes, just spam us with dislikes. That works too.
Yeah, likes and
start leaving
dislikes mean the
dislikes on
same
every
thing.
single episode. Hang on.
Are you actually
Awesome.
looking up to see?
No, I'm literally about to log into my YouTube account and leave dislikes on every single episode.
All right, it's gonna bruise my ego, but it might make the video more visible.
Listen, I'm leaving the dislikes because I don't like the way my voice sounds. That's why. It has nothing to do with you, Steven.
First, we got our Twitter. She barely uses it. When she does, though, it's really funny. But if for some reason you have not rung the bell on her channel yet, first off, what's wrong with you? This is a good way to get like links to like her videos. She just posts every single tweet. She tweets out her video, so that's another good way to like keep track of of her content. Also, there's the wonderful Discord. Without the Dangerous ASMR Discord, none of this would have been possible. I never would have become friends with any of the people here on this podcast, and we would have never had the chance to kind of all come together and just worship Dangerous together.
And because of Stephen, now we have periodic voice chat sessions with Dangerous. Stephen is the reason why we all started voice chatting. He threw down the gauntlet and people started jumping in, and then I messaged Dangerous and said, hey, a bunch of really cool fans are all chatting, and the rest is history.
Okay, now
See,
I'm
Steven's awesome, y'all. Everyone now okay. 1, now it's Steven's turn to be shy, and 2, Todd's absolutely right. Like, Steven will talk badly about himself, but he has been a massive, integral part to this fandom. So everyone appreciates Steven. Take 5 seconds to appreciate Steven.
so weird. This is like the opposite. of most podcasts where it's the leader just fucking goes on and on
Oh yeah,
about
we
himself.
freaking invited Todd here, but we're too busy rubbing our own ego, boosting our own egos to care. Todd's just
Yeah.
subpar compared to Steven and I. We're better than he is. No, we're not.
But yeah, and then after that we have the Patreon, which is where you can listen to a bunch of more audio she's made. She has a lot of not safe for work stuff, but it is not for babbies. It is only for people who are over the age of 18. If you listen to a not safe for work audio, which the whole reason I got a Patreon account, the whole reason I donated Patreon. In fact, no, that is the reason I got a Patreon account, because I didn't have one beforehand. It was for the not safe for work episodes of Jekyll and Hyde, because I was like, oh my god, you mean there's versions of these that have sex in them? So I immediately made an account, and I've been giving money to Dangerous for almost a year now. But you don't all just get not safe for work stuff. You get Drunk and Dangerous, which is she gets inebriated and reads crappy fairy tales or crappy fan fiction or crappy stuff from middle school yearbooks. And you also get other audios, some parody audios, and of course, stuff early. So I would definitely recommend, if you have a few dollars, to throw out Dangerous. And if you have even more money to throw out Dangerous, she does have merch over at Redbubble. There are several designs that not only are they like put on shirts, but you can put them on mugs, bumper stickers, gun cases, wine bottles. Some of this stuff might not be available, but there is a large variety of stuff that you can put King Simp on, or Little Dung Heap is on fire. From what I understand today, Boggle, you got all the shirts that you ordered today.
Oh yes, I did actually. I ordered 3 of the shirts. The one of them says all my favorite things in life are dangerous. Then the other is a picture of a white van that says currently kidnapped on the side, and then the last one is the Little Dung Heap is on fire. It's because I ordered them at around the same time. All 3 of them came in today in the same package. I was like, oh hey, look, there they are.
That's enough for the Dangerous shilling. Let's now shill someone who gives dangerous content to work with. So hello, Todd C. How are you today?
I'm good. This is great. This is my favorite podcast. And of course, that's,
Your only podcast.
Well, the only other podcast I ever listened to is my brother's podcast, which I could totally shill, but I just said that this is my favorite podcast. So already, my brother's going to be like licking his wounds.
What's your brother's podcast about, if you don't mind telling us?
It's called You Watched It Wrong. And in it, Wade Carney reviews the movies. And I'm pretty sure every episode is longer than the movie he's reviewing.
I've seen stuff like that. I'm actually somewhat interested by this podcast.
Yeah, somebody named
title,
Movie Buff is interested in movie podcasts. Who'd have thunk?
I think it was the title.
Now there are a few episodes where I guest star on it, and he plays several trivia games where he's giving quotes, and he calls one of them the intonation game, where he gives a very, very brief quote that's just like a couple words long sometimes, and I'm pretty good at nailing it because he does so well with his inflection, and he and I have pretty good recall, especially when they're movies from a certain time period that we know really well. But that's a really fun one too, and a lot of people listen to it and say, "I can't believe you didn't get this one."
You have to check it out. Is it on YouTube, SoundCloud?
It's wherever podcasts are. You can look it up. You Watched It Wrong.
Yeah, I will definitely have to check it out. I always love hearing about movies, like obviously. Look up my channel name.
Yeah. I see they've got a page on Podbean. You Watched It Wrong. We pick up a movie and discuss it to death with a focus on how we experience the story as it unfolds and how we stew on it afterward. Spoilers and tangents abound. But yes,
Just like this podcast.
right. But yeah, when I listened to your episode with Ike, it was just so much fun, and you guys talking about Jekyll and Hyde and Deborah Lavish, it was just it was so much fun. And
Todd's ego grew 2 sizes that day.
Yeah, exactly. And then last weekend with the chat on Discord, meeting some new people on there who were discussing Jekyll and Hyde. That was really, really a lot of fun. So I'm really excited because I've written the next 2 episodes and they're huge. Can't wait.
Get very scared when new episodes come out now because it's like, what are you gonna do? What are you gonna do to this woman now?
Oh no.
It's like, what are you gonna do to keep me from her? I mean the husband. What are you gonna do to keep the husband from her?
Yes.
I don't get into role plays like that. That's weird, right, Boggle?
Yep.
Trying to decide what would be better, whether we just hold off on the Jekyll and Hyde stuff or we get into that first. Oh, am I kidding? That's the only reason people are here. Let's talk about the Jekyll and Hyde stuff.
You made that decision very fast.
Before we start, I have a really dumb joke for you. Have you gotten a cease and desist from Tim Daly yet?
No. No, not yet. I've been very lucky.
It's just like, oh, cool, Superman's suing me. Well, if Robert Louis Stevenson, I'm correct, right? The Treasure Island guy wrote Jekyll and Hyde, right?
Yes. He woke from a fevered dream and was upset at his wife for waking him because he just got into the first experiment, and so he was sick at the time, and he wrote it in like 4 days. And it's a novella, and he gave it to his wife Fanny to read. And she said, this is a morality play and you wrote it very realistically. And he said, you're right. And the next time she saw him, he had burnt his first draft. And he rewrote it in 3 days and wrote it more as a morality tale. And I would give anything to see his first draft because I'm really curious what, a more what realistic version was. And then apparently he was upset at how successful it was because, he'd spent a long time writing novels like Treasure Island and he wrote this one in less than a week and it sold very well and was just super popular and it touched a nerve and he was kind of like, whatever.
It's kind of like the story. It's kind of like the stories I hear about David Fincher and The Social Network, where he's like, "That's my film that I get nominated for Oscars for." He's like, "I made Fight Club, and that's the film that everybody knows me for now." Which is funny to me because Social Network is like, where Fight Club was like a modern day late '90s masterpiece. Social Network was like a early 2000s masterpiece to me.
Yeah.
But before we alienate Boggle by just talking about movies.
Oh, too late. I've felt alienated for about 5 minutes now.
She's like, Social Network? What's that? Is that the movie of Michael Cera?
What's a movie?
I
only know what an audio is. What's a movie?
But yeah, it seems like you are a pretty big fan of the original series. Or you seem like you are a pretty big fan of the original novella. What kind of got you to go from that to a series you write for Dangerous?
Well, I think if I can out you real quick, it's like you and I both are way into transformation and movies and literature and whatnot. I would even say comic books, right? I mean, my favorite superheroes and whatnot, they're especially like the Hulk and the She-Hulk, they transform. And you've got magical transformations and you've got a more werewolf or science-based or whatever. Or even just the act of, taking off your clothes and you've got these brightly colored uniform underneath. That's a kind of transformation. And one of the great things about the internet is that you find other people who are into the same weird stuff that you're into. And I found so many people. Once, 8 years ago, I started sharing She-Hulk fanfic online, and people were like, "Oh my gosh, this is exactly it! This is exactly it!" Is that when they would say, when I read a comic book, I'm just waiting for the superheroine to transform and save the day, and then go back to her civilian identity or secret identity. And I think. Growing up watching old shows like the old Wonder Woman show or Shazam, ISIS, and the Incredible Hulk and all those cartoons and Spider-Man and everything, it just made me obsessed with secret identities, and of course, split personalities are where you have a different personality when you're yourself or your alter ego. That just makes it even more fascinating, and that's why movies like Fight Club and anything with a Jekyll and Hyde bent was far more fascinating. So I discovered Dangerous around Thanksgiving, November 2018, and I had just sent off a script to Teacup Audio to do a kind of a magical superhero kind of parody. And while I was waiting on that, I discovered Dangerous, and so I thought, oh, I have to write for Dangerous. She is so talented, and she seems, nowhere I go would be too far for her. She's, she likes it dark, she likes it twisted and sexy, and this is great. So then that December of 2018, I was writing. I tried something about between a comic book artist and a model, and I just could never get it to work right. And I thought, well, let me just go to somewhere I feel very comfortable with a female version of Dr. Jekyll and Ms.Hyde. And I had read a trilogy from that had done that, and that was really good, but they didn't really cover what I really wanted to do with it, and just have a lot of fun with it. So in January 2019, I started writing. The first thing I wrote was episode 4 on the train. And because I thought, well, I don't know if this is going to be a series or not. I'll just write this, what I would think would be the coolest part of the story. Any Jekyll and Hyde story, I think the coolest part is when Dr. Jekyll realizes they're going to turn into Hyde without taking the serum now. They've opened Pandora's box, and now it's a real problem. And so I wrote that scene on the train first, and like, okay, this is what I'd like. And I sent it to a friend of mine who lives in England who had really liked my She-Hulk fanfic. And I said, what do you think about this? I'm thinking about sending it to this Dangerous ASMR. And he said, don't start in the middle of the story, start at the beginning. So I by this point, I joined Patreon, and in February 2019, she contacted me and said, hey, do you have a script? And I think at that point I was a devout Danger. And so I sent her the first episode, because I basically wrote a prequel trilogy to that scene on the train. And that worked really well. And it actually could have totally stood on its own. Just that first 3 episodes is a nice arc. And I knew a lot of people would kind of figure that the series was over at the end of episode 3 because of where Angela kind of makes peace with herself at the end of that. So it's kind of a false ending. And yet we don't know about, what's happened to Deborah, or who burnt down her house, or we haven't even, and Lola Hyde's just not going to disappear forever. Yeah. And so then we were able to bring in make the listener a character for the next few. And for the most part, I wrote those sort of in order, although I would occasionally go back and insert some more episodes, which I know some people kind of said that the pacing kind of is slow and meandering. And it is. but the people who I really wrote it for, they're the ones, like Stephen and me, and like a few artists I knew who I've got to know, and my friends that liked my She-Hulk fanfic. They're like analyzing it based on the transformations in each episode. And I knew that was what they would hone in on. And but I also wanted to make it open to people who weren't just the transformation fetishists, and open it more and more. So I started talking more and more about to people, and that's when I really started talking to Boggle, who hadn't listened to it yet, and so I said, "Well, you should give it a listen and see what you think."
Yeah, I got bullied into listening to it, so I binged it all one night. Left comments on my way.
I was one of those bullies, by the way.
Yeah, I know. There was like at least 5 of you guys.
Yeah, come on.
I threw sand at her until she did it.
Yes, through the internet. He reached his hand through the screen and threw sand at me.
And then we could all talk what things were happening, and I did really want to bring Deborah Lavish back into the story because we really didn't know much about her. And then there near the end of 2019, for National Novel Writing Month in November, which I always attempt and always fail.
I feel that.
I started writing a prequel to the Jekyll and Hyde series called Mistress Lola Hyde, the Journal of Dr. Angela Jekyll. And so it was kind of a prequel, and it kind of helped me. And it was there that I came up with the statue of Aphrodite that's inspiring to her, and how the past with Angela and Deborah, and how things were all lining up. And it also kind of gave me a lot of work to kind of like fill in how Angela made the serum without noticing the red flags that she should have, and why when she takes it in episode 1, that she's testing on herself for an emotional reason, and she really doesn't know the danger yet, and which I think is just classic. One of my favorite movies of all time is the Jeff Goldblum 1986 version of The Fly. I love that movie. It's so terrifying and so sweet. It's got a romance in it, a real life romance, really. And
you should force Boggle to watch it with us.
Oh, it's science fiction. It's all about Jeff Goldblum's trying to solve teleportation, and it's based on an old French short story, and it really works. Oh man, I've read the original story, and I remember trying to watch the Vincent Price version when I was really little, and it terrified me.
That's I didn't even know there was a short story. I thought it was just a remake of the Vincent Price movie.
Right. Yeah, there's a short story called The Fly, and it's really freaky. By Guy de Maupassant, and it's really good. And but the Jeff Goldblum, of course, Cronenberg made it his own, and after that, I became a Cronenberg devotee, and because transformation with him is just always super grotesque, and just it always works in with this great theme. And But,
have you watched the Cronenberg movie about the woman who has a stinger in her armpit?
Oh, which one is that?
I'm actually looking that up right now. I just anytime people bring up David Cronenberg, I'm like, oh, have you seen this? And they're like, what? It's called Rabid.
Oh, Rabid! That's like one of his early ones.
Yeah, 1977.
I've not seen Rabid. I'm not a true fan.
I haven't seen it either, to be fair. But because we can probably talk about David Cronenberg for hours, I will kind of.
Yes.
We don't want to bore Boggle.
Oh, too late.
One of the first messages I sent to Danger was I recommended the movie Shivers to her, which is another Cronenberg movie, which is about zombies that are sex crazed. I don't know if she saw it, but I really hope she did. But yeah, The Fly is a fantastic movie. Like, I'm big into like gore and stuff, so like just seeing like the grotesque effects in it like throughout the movie is a lot of fun. And then Jeff Goldblum's performance is fantastic. Have you just seen this like you're seeing this like ambitious person just slowly turn into a monster, and he can't do anything to stop it. It's like
so good. So yeah, a lot of inspiration for writing this kind of thing. And then Jekyll and Hyde ends up being so much fun. And of course, I always know that Dangerous can do it. And so we end up just kind of pushing to set the bar higher and higher. And she really puts the work into it, and both in her performance and then her mixing with all the sound effects. And I keep asking for more and more, and the episodes keep getting bigger and bigger. But it's just so much fun, and she's always very encouraging. She's like, yeah, let the story do it. Let the story. And even when episode 10 the one that started out as an idea that would just be a Patreon exclusive. Some comment was just like, hey, let's just have an episode where we spend the night with Lola. And so I talked to Dangerous, and I felt like I was out of my depth. I was like, I don't know if I could do this. So just write a really sexy episode. So then I sat down and I wrote the longest one I'd ever written. And I'm like, okay, we have to make a safe for work version for this as well, because there's just too much good stuff in here. This is really good. Now, however, I often wonder, because of the kind of haphazard way I was building these episodes, that I kind of wonder how people would react if episode 10 had preceded episode 9, because 9 is where she tries to cheat on her fiance.
Yeah.
And that turned a lot of people off. I've seen a lot of comments where they Lola Hyde lost their trust forever. And of course, my reaction was, you trusted her? And but yeah, they were very turned off by her wanting to stray. And I always loved it when the guys would complain about that, and then the girls would comment and say, okay, so she tried to kill your previous fiance, and that's fine, but she thinks about cheating on you, and suddenly, whoa. But yeah, it was really interesting that build up to Hyde getting more and more powerful, and then in episode 9, she's so powerful that now she's willing to leave you if she doesn't need you, and go find somebody else while you're asleep. And that was unforgivable for a lot of people. And then to follow that up with the night of Lola Hyde just basically using you all night long, that to a lot of people came off as somehow disingenuous.
If I could talk about episode 9 really quick, and then just a little bit about like Lola and Angela, but something I really like about them is I like how doing that was able to give Angela power back, seemingly like without even knowing too, because when she comes back at the end of that episode, she like didn't realize it. So to me, like I'm still on the side of Lola. Like I know Lola's a bitch, but because I understand that she's just an extension of Angela, and a kind of like, not only just from like, like from lusting and wanting like to be like a better version of herself, but she's also like a corrupted version of Angela's wants and needs. Like, going back to the original Jekyll and Hyde story, Hyde was just basically all of Jekyll's evil into like one into another form.
Or even more strange is that Stevenson was saying that Jekyll was just taking the formula to look different, and that originally Jekyll didn't think it was changing his personality at all. He was just taking a formula so that he would look different, so that he wouldn't get in trouble for going out and doing scandalous things. And then, of course, the more often he became Hyde, the more he was doing awful, more, committing murder and whatnot, and he just couldn't stop. So that was kind of the morality of it. But yeah, I went back and read it again recently, and it was like, wow, it really is just a way to hide his identity. It didn't come out as the way the movies always say it, as I'm going to untap the dark part of myself. It's that the original Dr. Henry Jekyll is just wanting to look different so that he can go out and do nasty things and not get in trouble in Victorian England. And of course, he opens Pandora's box, and he can't stop, and he can't stop looking like Hyde. And the story slowly grows into more like Hyde is a different kind of personality, because he's kind of like Yoda says, he's gone down the dark path, and he can't come back now. He's out there committing murder, so he can't really become Dr. Henry Jekyll again.
Yeah. So the thing with Lola, I believe in that episode, and I guess you can tell me I'm wrong, is I really feel like that even though like Angela has like these thoughts and wants, or sorry, I feel like even though Lola, Angela too, Lola like has these thoughts and wants of like, oh, I'm gonna go out and just like have sex with another person. I feel like even though like that's what she doesn't really want that, because doing that is what causes Angela to kind of like gain control again. So I feel like there's things that they want and do, but deep down it's not really something like I don't know if I'm making sense. I'm sorry if I'm rambling, but like,
Oh, I think you're absolutely right. And I think that the way I think of it when I'm writing is I think about Angela Jekyll's heart. That I rarely feel like what Lola Hyde tells us can be 100% true, because she'll tell us whatever she wants to tell us, whatever she thinks we want to hear, or she'll just be really upset and she'll just be angry. And so it really is hard to trust her. But I do think when she talks about Angela's heart, I think she realizes that the source of her power, what triggers the serum that she'd already ingested from happening again, is that Angela loves this guy. And so yeah, I think her saying, well, he's asleep, so I'm going to go find another guy, that kicks the reverse transformation into going, because it's breaking Angela's heart, even if she's not conscious of it. Yeah. And that's usually what I'm thinking about is when I'm writing it, is that like where her heart is and everything and what she wants to do. And Lola is a way for her to get done what she wants. But of course, because Lola is corrupted with all this power, she'll go way too far. And there were some comments that were really interesting on that one, on episode 9 as well, where they said, hey, in episode 6, she was able to go off and fight this monster without the listener standing next to her. And yet, as soon as she leaves his side to go off and find some other guy, she starts changing back. It's like, well, that's intention. She was kind of fighting off Monster Deb for, to protect him. But when she was going to cheat on him, Angela knew that wasn't really what she wanted to do. But, and she's been able to control a little bit. She was able to convince her not to drink serum when she already was Lola. And so it kind of comes up every now and then. But yeah, I know a lot of comments are often pushing for a kind of a unification of Angela and Lola. We need them to be able to have a conversation, or for them to come together. Right, the Professor Hulk effect. We need them to amalgamate or come together. And so I'm just kind of curious to continue to play, because I being so fascinated by the Jekyll and Hyde process, I've often felt like if Dr. Banner and the Hulk have a conversation, I feel like that's breaking a rule, and so I tend to see that as a cop out, and so I try not to do that. And amalgamating them, I know as I've been reading Hulk comics, I've read them all, and whenever they try to give the Hulk Dr. Banner's brain, I'm eventually bored by that. Is like, well, that's not why I'm interested in this character. I want to see the back and forth and the drama between them. And so as much as I know we want a happy ending for Angela, I know also that it's the drama that's keeping the story going. And since I'm lucky enough to work in Hollywood, I know that you got to run the story into the ground. Just keep going as long as Dangerous will let me.
You got to get people to not like it and then end it.
Right, and then big ending. Whee!
That's what happened to Arrow. It's like the show had many ups and downs, and then it started sucking, and then the last 5 episodes were good, and everyone was like, "Yeah, that was a great show." It's like,
I want the ending, and they'll forgive you.
Yeah, it's like, oh no, it was okay. The ending was really good, so that means the show was good. I mean, to be fair, look at what happened to Game of Thrones. It's just,
yeah. Sometimes, the shows that are just so well loved, they have an ending that's kind of muddled, and everyone's like, ugh. Yeah.
Like I don't even like Game of Thrones anymore now. I look at my Stannis Baratheon Funko Pop, and I'm like, I'm so glad spoilers. I'm so glad they killed you when they did, because they would have just ruined you too.
Get out while the getting's good. But yeah, I think I'm really excited about the next couple episodes and so on. I've got ideas for the future, and it's so much fun. And right from the beginning, the first episode that went up, someone commented that it was the League of Extraordinary Gentlewomen. And that was a favorite comic series of mine from Alan Moore. It lasted 20 years, and it just ended about like 7 months ago, I think.
I didn't even know it was still going.
Yeah, it had been going. It was so much fun. He did so much with it. And so yeah, that's always been where I've kind of like ideally been going. Although I did tell Boggle last weekend what my original series ender idea was, and let's just say Stephen would not have been happy.
Ooh. Nope.
Stephen would not have been happy with the original idea I had, but Boggle liked where it went. Right? It was
Well, just
Boggle likes
the
everything,
alternative.
though.
Yeah. Okay. Wait, yes. One. Yes. Absolutely. And two. To be honest, it was just because the character you described, the new one, I was just like, man, I like this character. So
Yeah.
minor regret now that this character won't exist because that ship has been sunk since
right.
you went and altered it. But yeah, Steven, you're so right. I like everything. I'm such a loser. I have no spine. I like everything.
Well, yeah,
Except movies.
I'm like debating if I want to ask you, but I feel like I'm just gonna move on.
It was the original ending idea I had back when I had I was approaching writing The Wedding, and I was thinking, well, so I wrote The Wedding, and then I took a long break because I had written way ahead, and so Dangerous had a lot of episodes to get through, and before we got to The Wedding back in March, and so I was sitting around kind of thinking like, well, what am I going to do on their honeymoon? And because I'd set it up for this cruise, what's going to happen, and it was right around then where I was started chatting with Boggle, and so I started thinking about ending it tragically. And one of my favorite moments in comic books, it's the most tragic death in comic books, is Gwen Stacy in Amazing Spider-Man 21. And I just thought that's just such a huge moment. And so what I was considering was I was going to have Lola Hyde showing off on the cruise ship. And so she gets up on a platform and she's holding her husband in one arm, and then she picks up something really heavy in the other arm, and the platform breaks underneath her. And so while she's bobbling things, trying to set things down, she doesn't realize that her husband is crushed or his neck's broken. And so then when she writes herself out, she's still talking to him and slowly realizing he's dead. And once she realizes she's dead or he's dead, she just starts crying and she turns back into Angela Jekyll, because at that point she'd been Lola Hyde for good for a while, since The Wedding. And so she was just getting, as was the case in episode 14, she's going way too far. She's going over the top. We're worried about him. And I saw so many comments saying, yeah, she's going to kill him, whether she means to or not. And that was
like, almost.
That was my foreshadowing, is like, yeah, he's probably going to die, and it's going to be her fault. And it's going to break Angela Jekyll's heart, which means Lola Hyde will die. And she'll revert back to Angela, and that was where I really liked Lola Hyde's, yelling at her sick husband on their honeymoon, basically saying, you can't get sick and die, because if you do that, then I'll die, and the only one who'll be left is Angela Jekyll feeling sorry for herself, and nobody wants that. And I thought, well, that's kind of where I was headed. And but he was just so depressing, and I knew it would upset so many people to have the listener die, and it would be so tragic. But then what Boggle liked was that I thought, you take a break for a few months, and then suddenly, Dr. Jekyll has, a continuing adventure. She's, maybe years have passed, and maybe she avoided a conviction for manslaughter because she was not in control of herself, but the court orders her never to become Lola Hyde again. And she said, don't worry, it's not going to happen. And she moves up, in some rural area and lives in a mansion all by herself, just to kind of feel sorry for herself for the rest of her life. And then this country bumpkin named Henry because I've always been looking to write the perfect part for myself.
See, this is ultimately going to be a massive self-insert fic. That's all this ever was.
Yeah, so this country bumpkin
Like
named
you got people hooked, and like now I can put myself and live out my
Yes.
dreams.
Yes. So this country bumpkin who's like a handyman, he's the only one that ever comes around to help Angela Jekyll, and he's so sweet and silly and such a goofball that she starts having feelings for him. And he's also insanely accident prone, and so he keeps needing to be rescued. And so there we would have the thing that I missed in this setup of Jekyll and Hyde is we would have a love interest who doesn't know that Angela Jekyll is Lola Hyde. And maybe he's just so out in the sticks, he's never heard about her alter ego. And so she could transform because she has feelings for this guy and she needs to help him. She could transform into Lola Hyde and come and rescue him. And Lola would not be interested in him at all. She's like, oh my God, this guy is so lame. And you know, and of course, a lot of this I was even developing as I was pitching it to Boggle. I was like, okay, well, and then the guy thinks that Lola is his guardian angel. So he's not attracted to her. He just thinks, oh, that's my guardian angel helping me out here. And then even if Lola propositions him because she's feeling, lonely, then Henry could say, sorry, I'm just, you're way out of my league. You're a guardian angel. And besides, my heart's already spoken for. There's this sweet young widow. There's a sweet widow that I just don't have the nerve to tell her how I feel. And Lola could actually then like set them up or something. Anyway, that was where I was thinking I could go. And but it was just
hate that if that makes you feel good.
Yeah, it seemed like a fun thing, but it would be so traumatizing for us to get there, to kill off Mr. Our darling, our rich Bruce Wayne guy. Killing him off because so many of us want to be him.
Is he going to fight crime with Lola? Sorry, I'm focusing on the wrong things here.
Well, we can see what develops because I did come up with something just, actually the other day that I thought that our listener could have talents that we just haven't heard yet, and because he's just been either waiting around on either Angela or Lola all the time, and so we really need to find out more about him. But yeah, there's a lot that can still happen, and getting the team together. Yeah, the Steampunk Avengers or the League of Extraordinary Women, and what better now the last few years I have been hardcore harem anime viewing, if that's not already apparent.
You don't say.
I've been watching so much harem anime. I was watching one of my favorites ones again the other day, Interviews with Monster Girls, Demi-chan's. I've read the manga and the anime, and my favorite though is still Girls Last Tour. But a lot of those are just really fun, and they set up, kind of what Jekyll and Hyde has set up. You've got this one guy who I kept thinking about giving him a voice, but then I was like, just keep him there, and just have him be the listener, and then surround him with dangerous characters. And I love how Ike Moore was responding to waking up with Angela and Deborah in the previous episode. Like, oh boy, oh no. This is great, but it's also terrifying. Speaking of which, my brother is afraid to listen to Jekyll and Hyde. He told me. He said that after years of me terrorizing him with the Incredible Hulk and stuff like that, he was just so traumatized that he says, I start listening to Jekyll and Hyde, and then I know she's going to transform, and I have to turn it off. And I love the comments of like, is she turning into a werewolf? What's happening? Oh my gosh. But
What's funny is the quick change effect. That's what I call the more recent like changing sound effects, because it's less drawn out now.
yes.
And
Speeding it up more for the masses who aren't like you and me, who are like, look, if this change
you can hear
takes
it for a
5
whole
minutes,
episode.
that's fine. That's fine. But yeah.
The entire episode.
Right. Yeah, see, there's so much fanfic and so many wonderful fan art of like characters like the She-Hulk or rip-offs of where they just kind of one of the funny things they're often saying is like, fight it, honey, make it, just draw it out as long as you can. Try not to change, and maybe we'll go for 10 pages this time. Woo!
As much as I love the story, like I can't tell you how many times I'm like, you know what, I want to listen to the episode 9 transformation.
Yes.
My favorites will always be the Lola to Angela ones. Just like kind of like, just kind of like hearing like just her like freaking out, and she's like, oh no, I'm turning back into the fucking loser.
Yes. Yeah, episode 3, when she's actually, you can tell she's like considering, why torture Deborah? I'll just kill her.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like that's when we hit Angela's circuit breaker, and she's like, I can't do this, and she starts changing back. And but to hear like it in her voice, she's just, it's so funny how dangerous. And I've seen comments about this too, and I feel the same way. Is that we make this character who's so reprehensible and petty and cruel, and yet we feel sorry for her. He's like, oh my gosh, no, it was so close. That was so close. And then the wedding reverse transformation is just, I saw Maddie comment on that. It was just so heartbreaking. And that is like so many other things. When I'm writing script, I haven't thought about the dialogue. I'm just kind of and I often don't know where I'm headed. And just when Lola's changing back, I'm thinking, I don't want to be like this, because how could he love me like this? I immediately started crying at the keyboard. It was so sad, because that tells you how filled with self-loathing Angela Jekyll is that she doesn't like being herself. Even though she had that moment at the end of episode 3 where she was like, well, at least I'm me, because she'd lost control of herself, and she didn't like that. But when then it came down to securing her crush to be her husband and everything, suddenly now she didn't think she was good enough again. And that gave Lola strength, I think. And I
really like that too. How like, because I feel like some people would look at that like, what the fuck? She can't overcame her problems last time. But it's kind of like, to talk about comics again, it kind of reminds me of Jessica Cruz. How like, the Green Lantern, how she's like so stressed with like anxiety because of what's happened to her, that she basically has like character development like every single episode because of her just major anxiety. Like, yeah, she can overcome her problems, but what happens tomorrow? So I really like how Angela, like, not necessarily regressed, but kind of like, now that she finally got her man, all the insecurities came back.
Yeah, because she thinks, well, this is what he wants, especially when we learn about the statue, and now even Deborah Lavish is like, that's gotta feed on her insecurity, or let her insecurity feed on that. And so that just makes Lola stronger. And so and then how it so often kind of works into being analogous or to somebody with an addiction problem, or knowing or having a relationship with somebody who has anger management or anger issues, or physically, emotionally abusive. It's just like she can go back and forth, and of course the people can complain about the crocodile tears from Lola if she's apologizing, which is very difficult for her to do. But even with Angela, she can't really apologize for it, because she's just so unhinged. And it's a lot to play with. And literally now when I sit down to write, it's just kind of like I let the characters just go nuts with what they want to do or what they want to talk about and see where it goes. And now it's kind of keep building to more and more action. So I think the series is really going to start picking up more and more action, whereas in the past, the first several episodes have been able to have a lot of talking about it, and around a situation with the transformation involved. But I think now we're just going to pick up more and more action, and that makes sense. I mean, even Dangerous's own Dangerverse with her characters like Alpha and the Witch, and that's getting more and more action based, and that's probably why she took a little bit of a break, because it's a setup where it's kind of more prone to action with the group of them as opposed to them sitting around talking. But yeah, it's still, I'm very excited about that as well. She's made a fantastic bunch of characters.
Yeah.
And then Ike and I a couple weeks ago got together and wrote a crossover for his Patreon exclusive series. Nails and Gale are going to meet Jekyll and Hyde, and it was really, really fun.
Yeah, I didn't know if I was going to bring that up or not, but he couldn't contain himself. He blabbed
Yes.
on
Yeah, he
I know,
blurted it out in the
Patreon.
As soon
Patreon
as we
chat.
finished, he said, I can't not talk about this. This is only, it was really fun. It was great to write with someone who's just a great comedian and just, he just punched up all my, lame jokes. And then we just kind of worked with each other, and it was really, really fun. And it had and Stephen, you probably know these movies as well. The Tremors and
I love Tremors.
Tremors is one of my favorites. Also, I love the classic Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein, because what those movies do is the villains or the monsters are real. They're 100% real. And even if the premise is silly, it's still, they're dangerous. They're threatening. Their threat is real. But then the human characters are funny, and they're allowed to be comical, and you've got to handle it just right so that the monsters are still scary while the humans are funny. And of course, working with Ike just made that work really well, because I love Nails and Gale.
Same.
And I knew all when he suggested it, I realized we're gonna set this up so that Jekyll's turning into Hyde in front of Nails, and Nails running commentary begin now. It's gonna be good. Oh.
So, I feel like we should brag about all the episodes that we love. All three of us. I mean, I can name my top 5 right off my head.
What are
Okay,
Your
shit.
favorite.
Now that I'm on the spot, I'm like, shit, I forgot them all.
So you didn't tell me to prep a list, Steven. I don't know which
I
ones I
tell
like.
you to prep every week, and you're like, nah, I'm too lazy. I got this.
You didn't tell me specifically what to prep for. Listen, I binged Jekyll and Hyde. They all blend together for me. I don't even remember which episode was which.
Yeah. That's what really sucks when you binge watch Dangerous, because I did that with Doctor's Orders, or not.
Oh,
I think it was Doctor Orders, and I was like, I could not remember what thing came from what episode.
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh no, it was Save. It was Saved by Giantesses, and just I listened to all of them in I listened to all of them in one sitting. I was like, yeah. So in episode the 4, and then Grandpa's like, no, that was 7, Stephen.
That's why we needed Grandpa there, because dude, I listened to those as they came out, and I still was like, was that episode 5 or 6?
But yeah, I feel like episode 3 is my favorite. It might just be because I listen to the transformation a lot, but I really, as much as I love Lola, I really like when she's kind of cut down to size. So the whole episode, she's like, I'm in charge, I'm ready to do this. And then the moment she starts turning into Angela, she just fucking loses everything.
Yes, I love that moment. It's like the the character you love to hate kind of thing, where it's coming. Oh no, she's gonna get her comeuppance finally. Here goes.
Episode 2 might be my favorite transformation, just because it's the only time where Angela really accepts it.
Right. Oh. Yes.
Do you have a personal favorite, Todd?
Well, it's hard to pick, because one of the things in focusing on, as you and I do, on the transformation aspect, I was wanting, because I wrote so much She-Hulk fanfic. I was like, okay, I want a scene here. I wanted, with a restaurant, and I wanted to here, and some reverse transformations, and to get into headspace, and so to try all these different things, and then of course the laboratory. But so yeah, I'm looking at like, well, what kind of different things that I like. But I mean, I really like the wedding. There's a lot of fun stuff happening in part 10. I know our friend Net Neutrality really likes 10 because 10, it is that total fan service episode where if you want to spend the night with Lola, then part 10 is for you. And it's yeah, I got to try so many different things with that. And then and Dangerous, it was very encouraging. So it was really cool because it was, like I said, I was a little nervous about writing that one. I felt like, well, this isn't going to be story. This is just going to be a long sex scene. And so, of course, what did I do is I just drag a whole bunch of story in there so that people can comment, this woman won't shut up. She's talking all through the sex scene. Well, yes, isn't that awesome? It's great because you're seeing what's going on in her head and she's coming off so confident, and then she'll say something that totally undermines that, and you realize she's really kind of nervous and she's really to know if she's reading him right. And so yeah, I like 10. I love 6. The monster fight, the Hulk versus Abomination, is just totally what I want. And so 6 is really, I don't know if anybody else is going to like it, but I love 6, and just I love the fight. I love Hyde being, I call her Tinkerbell from Peter Pan, because she's telling her fiance to believe in me, and I can do it. And she needs her own confidence boost, even though she seems to be supremely confident. And then she faces somebody that right away she realizes, you're bigger and stronger than me. You could totally defeat me, but I know I'm going to win because it's my show.
I would like to hear a version of that where Lola turns to the audience and she's like, I need all of you listening to believe in me.
And then you got some Lola haters out in the audience going, boo, lose. Deborah. Monster dead.
Episode 9 is also one that I really love, and it's for a variety of reasons. It's because I find the moment where Lola's getting dressed, I find that very hot. I am a man. I do like women, so I very much enjoy it.
Yeah. And if that's the one, no, it's 12 that has, and Boggle and I talked about this, 12 on Patreon has the hate sex at the end.
Oh yeah.
That was a new place for me to go, and that was kind of weird. But I was putting it in there and just well, what if we get the sense, because people are often complaining they don't know what this guy is thinking, and if he goes as far as to throw away, Hyde says, here, if I drink this, I'll turn back into Angela. And he throws it away, and I still see comments on YouTube of people complaining about that. Why would you do that? Let her drink it. And but then she turns around and says, it was all a lie. I just was testing you, or messing with you, and so and now you're going to do what I say. And so the sex scene after that is kind of grim, because he's starting to get upset about where he's at, and feels sad that it might also be really hitting him that Angela isn't coming back. Yeah. And so that, and he's probably blaming himself, rightly so. And but then to have Lola turn around and say, whatever, that you just work this out for yourself is just really harsh. And I think a lot of that was me just pushing Lola, and because Dangerous really was fine with let's make her just make her monstrous, and because she's so sexy, she's so alluring, but we could just make her be so cruel and petty and narcissistic, and so now where I'm headed is, we've spent episodes 15 and 16 with no Lola, and it's the Jekyll and Hyde show, and I complained. I don't know if you were familiar with the She-Hulk comics from a couple of years ago, Stephen, but there was a series where they didn't have the She-Hulk in there for 5 months, and just Jennifer Walters afraid to turn into the She-Hulk because she would become monstrous, and she was afraid, and then we would get told that she did turn into the She-Hulk, but they wouldn't show it to us.
It's like, oh yeah, if she turned to She-Hulk in Mighty Avengers, and it's like, well, I'm not. That's not on my pull list right now. It's She-Hulk.
Right. What are you doing? And it's kind of like Reservoir Dogs not showing the bank robbery, and I thought, okay, well, it's kind of not bank robbery; it was a diamond heist. But yeah, you kind of like, okay, it's sort of artsy, sure, but I haven't seen She-Hulk in 5 issues, and I'm starting to think.
Yeah, Reservoir Dogs is a 90-minute movie. She-Hulk, 5 issues of She-Hulk, like 5 issues of a comic is like forever. That's an entire trade.
Yes. Yes, and I bought those trades from that series because I love the quote freaks on the outside were just so damning with their faint praise. Well, here's a She-Hulk collection without She-Hulk. Enjoy. So I'm afraid I'm breaking my own rules. I've written parts 15 and 16 with no Lola Hyde, and like, oh no. Is that
don't do it 3 more times? Just so 3 more episodes in a row.
It'll be great. It'll be great because I felt like Lola, she was bogarting. She bogarted episode 12 and 10 for that matter, but completely 12, and then even was mocking us for it. And then she's totally going to ditch the wedding, and then she totally owns the honeymoon. And so yeah, I felt like after nearly killing us, the listener, is that Lola needed to be put on timeout, and that that just allowed us to get to know Deborah Lavish more, because she'd just been this threatening presence, and I'd been talking with this new friend on Discord who had just marathoned all of Jekyll and Hyde, and she introduced me to this concept called Supercore, and it's so cool. And because Boggle's a big Supergirl TV show fan and fanfic writer, a very good fanfic writer. And
thank you.
Yes, very good, very good. And Five Nights at Freddy's and a whole bunch of fanfic.
I did not expect to write as many as I did, but I did.
And but yes, the Supercore idea, because here I knew I was going to have Deborah Lavish confront them. And I thought, it would be just so perfect for Deborah Lavish to confront them on their honeymoon right when the listener is ill and Lola Hyde changes back into Jekyll. And that's just the perfect timing for Deborah to show up. And we're all expecting a big throwdown, but how is that going to happen? And everyone's on edge about it. It was a great cliffhanger, and I didn't know how to handle it either. And so, I'm talking quite a bit with Boggle, and she's telling me how Greg Berlanti's, letting her down. not letting Supercore. Yes, Greg Berlanti. Now, Stephen,
have you seen season 6 of The Flash?
Have I told Stephen that I know Greg Berlanti?
Get him to get his stuff together and fix these shows.
Yeah.
Yes,
The Flash for Stephen and Supergirl for me, please.
All right. Well, what I want to say to him is like, hey, I heard, there was the Supercore, we're needing some Lena Luthor and Kara action, and so I just kind of thought, well, let's try that with Angela and Deborah, and of course the situation's quite a bit different. Is that Deborah's got a chip on her shoulder for Lola, and she's all very threatening, but she's at least to the point like she doesn't want to murder Angela. She wants Angela to
that we know of.
Right.
We know.
right. She's like I'm not going to kill you. I'm just going to, if you turn into Hyde, I'm going to turn into my monster and take care of you. But of course, we don't know how much Deborah even realizes that Lola defeated her monster before. So it's kind of like Deborah might be having confidence that's misplaced, because even though her monster is so powerful and terrifying, Lola, as long as she's got the confidence, she could defeat her. Of course, Lola also, I think someone even mentioned this online, that they thought Lola might be weaker because what she's done to her husband may weaken her a bit. So that's so much to consider.
Just waiting for the Popeye moment where Lola's losing and then she falls near the husband, so she crawls near him and she's
Yes!
like,
Oh,
touch my
God.
boobs. And then like the surge, it's just then like music comes in and it's like
Yes,
That better
the
happen.
listener is the spinach. She's gonna squeeze his can so his lid pops off. Yes, give me some Popeyes. Oh, and yeah, that sounds perfect. But yeah, with Hyde, I
So
really
guys,
enjoyed.
this is how Todd writes his series. He just asks us
Yes.
for the dumbest ideas we can think of, and once we give them to him, he writes them down. So you are seeing this work in progress right now. Expect
This sounds
Popeye's
perfect.
reference in a future episode.
That's how it happens. Yes. Well, and I call my style of writing organic, which is why I'm not an employed television writer, because professional writers, as they have told me often, write with outlines. And so yeah, I've talked to writers and have friends who have worked their way up from getting coffee for the writing room and then end up writing episodes or writing novelizations from the series and then becoming the full-fledged writers who are hired for other shows, and they've done really well, and they're really great creative people, and they know better to like write with an outline, and yet I had started that way, but then once I found the joy of sitting down and just writing, and I call it organic, where I just kind of grow it like a plant or a tree and just see where it goes, and it's so much fun. It's like it really makes you feel like a god while you're writing, because it's just that the characters just channel through you. And Lola Hyde tells me that what she wants to say to her dying husband is to chew him out for getting sick when it's his fault. And I just like, oh, that's good stuff, Lola. Excellent. And I just feel like an outline could kind of diminish that if I know for sure where I'm going. But then at the same time, I write something like that. I show it to a friend of mine, a really close friend who does script coverage and everything. And she looks at what I've written. She says, "Oh, this is structured perfectly. You're following the structure, and it's just kind of natural." And like, oh, okay, well that's good.
That's good.
That's how it works. All right, good. But yeah, and it's also fun to get out and create new characters as well. The Doulahan was a really just a lark. Is that because I'd been watching so much anime? The interviews with Monster Girls, Doulahan is one of my favorite characters. Machi is just the best. And then I've been watching Konosuba, and that has a great Doulahan in it. And then other people turned me on to that other series. I can't remember what it's called, but the Doulahan is where she rides a motorcycle.
Monster
So,
Masumi?
Yeah, that's gonna be it. So I was
Like one of
watching
the ones that we said.
Yes.
I was gonna say, because the only one I know is, I believe the show is called Durarara, because my friend
Yes!
watches it. And yeah, well, because actually that's the funny thing. When I introduced her to Dangerous, I was like, listen, I know you're not a fan of lewd stuff, so I'll try to like quote unquote filter it out for you, and I'll give you like a list of stuff that you might enjoy. And when she saw the title Doulahan, she's like, oh, there's a Doulahan in one of the shows I'm watching. I want to listen to that one. So yeah, and I even remember one time I got her to attend one of the Saturday voice chats, and she got a chance to speak with Dangerous because there's a moment in the conversation of silence, and she even mentioned, she's like, yeah, I listened to Doulahan when it was really good. And Todd, I don't know if you remember that night, but yeah, I DM'd you. I was like, yeah, that girl that's talking to her now, she's the one. And I believe the Doulahan's name is Celti, which is obviously, or Celtic. I don't know how you pronounce it. Obviously, it's a reference to Celtic Irish. So I was like, oh, of course, that's her name. But yeah, that's the character you're referring to. That's the only Doulahan I know, because she was like, yeah, there's this Doulahan in my show who rides a motorcycle. I'm like, the Dangerous one doesn't, but she should.
Yes, and who knows? Yes, I've been struggling. I've written a couple of sequel episodes for the Doulahan, but I've still been messing with them and with more because, of course, I had more of an idea of what I was doing with Jekyll and Hyde, and it was going to be really big. Whereas with the Doulahan, I noticed a couple of comments back right at the start of the year, right in early January. I noticed some comments saying, would you do a Doulahan video for Dangerous? And so I wrote her and I said, hey, I saw some requests for Doulahan. If you were interested in doing a Doulahan, I could help you with it because it sounds like an interesting challenge. I didn't have an idea, but I just kind of threw that out there. And it's the favorite thing I've ever gotten on Discord. She responded, if I wrote a Doulahan script for me, she would have my babies. So,
So I guess we can expect babies in the future.
So I was like, hot damn, I got to write this script. And I wrote it in a day. I wrote it really
Todd
fast.
wanted them danger babies.
It's a sure thing. I got to get to work. And I did some quick research. I found a website with Irish slang. I did some quick Doulahan research, but I knew it was an Irish accent. And that was really the question I had for her. I said, would you like to do it with an Irish accent, because a Doulahan is an Irish specter? And she said, yeah, let's do that. And and then I said, and I'm looking for, like, the personality for this Doulahan is, I think what Dangerous does best to me is she's sweet, where we like her. She's very alluring, but she's also terrifying. Because, she has that maniac laugh and and that serial killer kind of, and that Yandere, tenacity. She's sweet and terrifying. And so I wrote her back and I said, what do you think? An Irish accent with a character who is sweet and terrifying? And she said, go for it. So I wrote it really quickly and I read it out loud several times just to make sure it sounded right, even though I can't really do an Irish accent. And then I sent it to her, and she turned it around really quick, and she made the YouTube version gender neutral. I hadn't been thinking that way, but I really should. I had written it for a male listener, and on the Patreon version, that's still there because, of course, it goes a little farther than the YouTube version does. But,
yeah, as I like the joke, if I really want to hear gender neutral, not safe for work. So Dangerous is just like, oh, I'm touching your genitals. Your genitals feel so nice in my hand.
That's why I didn't write it. That's why I didn't write it gender neutral, because I went there. So, but yeah, so when she took it to YouTube, she just took out the 2 references in the part before the ending sex scene, and it was great. And that one is like one of the most liked ones that I've written. It's really engaging, and I kind of like, wow, I didn't spend any time on that, and I don't know what to do next. But she said she recorded it 3 times before she was comfortable with the accent, and it's beautiful. She sounds that accent is so beautiful, and she listened to a lot of native speakers, and just so good. And then there was the Knitting Kudere. And that one I had written the previous last summer. And I kind of sat on it for a long time. I thought, oh, this is a downer and no one's going to like it. And I kind of
liked it.
I hated it. It was so sad. No, I'm just kidding.
I didn't have any faith in it. I thought, well, this is just going to be weird. And maybe there's not a series there. But it was based on a character that I had been playing with in the novels I've been writing, and not showing anybody. And I was like, well, I like this character, and maybe that'll come out. Maybe this will be kind of a test drive for her. And so I sent it to Dangerous, I think, back in October, and that was really just because Jekyll and Hyde had been going since March of last year. And then over the summer, I sent her a Patreon exclusive called The F Buddies. And that one was a fun little one that I just was trying. But again, I hadn't considered if it was a series or not, although I have a few ideas. I could continue that. It was a fun little one. And then I sent her the Knitting Kudere, but when I didn't hear back for several months, I was like, well, if she missed that one, that's fine. That was kind of a weird, sad little story. And besides, I was sending her a new Jekyll and Hyde every month, so I was keeping her busy enough. I didn't want to bogart Dangerous. And then at the beginning of the year in January, I sent her the Doulahan, which she turned around real quick, and it was beautiful. And then she got a cold, which was perfect timing, so that her Jekyll and Hyde Part 11, she would have this rough, raspy voice that just breaks your heart in Part 11. It was method acting. It was so good.
I forgot that she filmed that when she's on a cold. Yeah, I remember like hearing like Angela's voice, and I'm like, Jesus, man, she sounds so broken.
So broken. It was perfect timing, and I was afraid to send her the next script because I wanted her voice to get better. and it did get better. And so Part 12, Lola could be Lola, just cruel. And then she surprised me when she put out Knitting Kudere, and I think it did really well, partly because the Doulahan, I think, had a built-in cult following. The name Doulahan has its fans, but a lot of people had never heard of it before, and so it was a new thing for them. And then the Kudere people had heard about, and that's one of those personality. There's a ton of Yandere, there's a ton of Sundari, but you don't see a lot of Kuderes because those are kind of hard to pull off because they're confident but awkward but kind of brutally honest. And this one, the Kudere, I guess the term comes from being cool. That's just like that they're not showing you a lot of emotion. Then they surprise you with how brutally honest and straightforward they are. And so this character I had been working on and had written a lot in novels about her. This sort of character who's kind of lonely and kind of finding her way, and she's kind of this sad sack tragic character. But I hadn't really thought of her as a Kudere, and I thought, she's really there. We could just call her that. And then of course it got me in good with Boggle's mom. So that's it's really what's the big worthwhile out there is that all knitters love other knitters. And
it's a story I haven't heard about.
Yes.
What's the story, Boggle?
Oh no.
Sorry, I just zoned out. What do I do?
Is that the knitter, the knitting Kudere is a knitter, and knitters love hearing about knitters. So
brought up how he made your mom a fan.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, I mean, I had been because I've gotten so obsessed with Dangerous in general. I have mentioned her to my family before. So this was not the first time my mom had listened to some of her stuff, because I was like, listen, even if this isn't your thing, like, you can't deny that Dangerous has talent and listen to all the voices she does. And then when that dropped and I saw the title, I just burst out laughing. Like, before I even turned on the audio, I was like, why is there a knitting character on this channel? And I was like, as soon as my mom, as soon as I'm done listening to this, to make sure it's not too lewd, because I didn't know what to expect from it. And
Yeah, I keep forgetting that there's other dairy types. I just assume it's Soon and Yan. I know there's one where it's like just incredibly super shy. I forget what it's called. So like when the Kundere thing came out, I was like, what the hell is that? But I enjoyed the audio. I really like the character. My favorite moment is when she asked if you want to have sex with her.
Yeah, okay. Because of how straightforward she was. Yeah.
I wasn't expecting that.
I had my mom listen to the whole first part, so that was part of it. And she laughed. She's like, "What the heck?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I know, this character's a little bit blunt." But mostly, like, the entire, it's not a funny audio, but it had me and my mom laughing because, you had the really blunt remarks like that, which are unintentional comedy. And it just, for her as a knitter, she was like, everything the character said was accurate. Everything that the character said was something she'd said at least once, because I make fun of her for how much she knits, because holy God, does she knit a lot. So it was like, Mom, there's a knitting character on this channel now, come here. And she was like, I have my favorite character.
I have a few friends who are knitters, and I have tried it myself, and it just fascinates me. And so, the stories about the double pointed needles and the circular needles, and her making reference to them as weapons, and then just how many projects she has going at once. That was all. I've picked that up from friends. And
that's literally the truth. That's accurate knitter representation there. You nailed it on the head. Like,
and then
like,
to and then
great.
to put that knitting obsession in with a kudere who's going to be very straightforward and blunt, and you're not going to see it coming. So yeah, it just felt like just the beatest thing in the world to follow the string of knitting string of knitting paraphernalia discussion, and then suddenly do you want to have sex? Because you'll listen to me talk about knitting, so maybe you're interested, maybe be fine. So it's the true test. If he'll stay on the love seat with you, listening to you talk about knitting, he's interested.
So
That's
I
one way
know
to see if you can find your soulmate. Who can tolerate the knitting talk?
Right.
It's like, if you're still around by the time we start talking about the 8th different type of needles, then you're probably going to stay forever. So let's do this.
Yes, sexy knitting times. That's got to be what's going to be in the sequel. Boggle, we need to talk.
Sure. I don't know anything about knitting, but I can be like, hey, Mom. I mean, heck,
What would be the most passionate knitting project?
Speaking of like just talking to all these people for ideas, I showed you, like, I made a reference that like I was sitting on for like weeks. I thought it was like the most hilarious comparison ever. But it's the scene from Pee-wee's Big Adventure where he knocks over all the bikers' cars, and like they all bring him in, and they're like, I say we kill him, I say we tattoo him. So I like to think of that scene of just everyone giving you all these ideas, and I'm Pee-wee saying like, I say we just let Angela and the husband go, and everyone's like, no. And then Boggles Elvira, who just comes up to me and grabs me by my shirt and says like, I say you let me have him. Oh fuck, I said that out loud.
I approve. That's probably what I would have said.
Sorry, I just wanted to bring that up.
I hope you leave that in the podcast episode.
I'm
I'll be
leaving that in the
disappointed if you don't.
podcast. I'm leaving it in the podcast, don't worry. I know this is the Dangerous ASMR podcast, but other ASMR artists exist too. So I wanted to bring up your audio that you made for Teacup, aka Show Me Goddess. I hope I said that correctly.
Yes.
What's funny is like when I first saw that, I didn't see the little comma, so I thought it was literally just "Show me, goddess." But
grammatically correct. Yeah.
But I told you I would listen to it like months ago, and I never did because I'm a terrible friend. But
and a terrible fan and a terrible person.
Me and Bob were the worst fans ever. Never forget it.
And that goes for like non-dangerous people too. We're terrible fans to everyone else as well.
But I knew I knew I had to listen to it, so I finally did. I listened to a bunch of audios today, and this one might have been it. Wow, going back to being the worst fan ever, I listened to a bunch of dangerous audios today, but of all the last audios I listened to, the Teacup audio is my favorite.
Yeah, forget dangerous. Your stuff is boring in comparison.
And that's why this is the last episode of the podcast, because Dangerous isn't going to let us use her name anymore after this.
What?
But yeah, I really enjoyed this, man. Like I was sad when I was like, oh no, he didn't make another one. It was just this one. Kind of going back into like your love for comic books. This is basically your Shazam audio.
Yes.
Yeah. Or Black Adam, more accurately, because I'm assuming she's Egyptian. No, it's Greek. No, I can't even remember. I just listened to this fucking thing today. It was Greek,
yes,
right?
Yes, Greek, a goddess of poetry.
Yeah.
So yes.
But like I kind of didn't know like the plot of it. I was just listening to it. She's like, something happened to me today. I read this poem and it turned out it was an incarnation. I was like, holy crap! Is she possessed by a fucking god? I was like, yes, she is. But it was like a really cool audio. I'm a sucker for the romantic stuff. I'm a hopeless romantic. And I'm lonely and I'm sad and
that's why any of us are here. We're all lonely, sad, pathetic, hopeless romantics. That's why we're all here.
But
we use audios to fill the void.
But yeah, I really like that. It kind of goes into the whole like Angela. It kind of goes back to like Angela and Lola, where like there's this person who's very much they can't act on their feelings, so they kind of use another form of themselves. Well, this one's not really themselves, but they use another form to kind of like act on certain feelings.
Yeah, and I think that's I think one of the things one of my greatest loves are superheroines, comic book superheroines, and so the idea that the 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 really sweet, intelligent, civilized young woman that you take home to meet your parents, that's the superheroine in disguise. But she only shows when she turns into the superheroine, and so that's kind of it plays in a lot of what interests me to write. So like Jekyll and Hyde, and this I wrote before Jekyll and Hyde because I wrote this right before I discovered Dangerous, and I sent it off, and Teacup did it a few months later, and she really stretched it out because I'm looking at it right now. What I wrote her was a 3-page, 1,500 word scene, and I'm looking at it now. It's not nearly as well formatted as what I sent to Dangerous, but I kind of wrote a little setup. Susan Almond is a college poetry professor. Meets with a fellow teacher after class. It's been a rough day. There was an incident on campus where a busy crosswalk bridge suddenly began to collapse, and Susan had to transform into her magical alter ego and save the students on the bridge. Everyone was saved, but the other teacher witnessed Susan's transformation and is now the only one who knows Susan's secret. She asked him to stop by her office at the end of the day. They obviously need to talk. So then I wrote, a 2.5-page speech from Susan, and culminating in a transformation into her Greek goddess, and I wrote 2 more episodes after that, but it took so long because Teacup she's very busy. She's got a lot going on, and it's probably hard to get in to see her, and so this did get through, and she made it much longer. She spread it way out. She kept the premise, but it really added to it. And she wrote me back and she said, "Sorry, I kind of ran with this." I was like, "No, that's fine. It's good." And she put an accent in there that I wasn't expecting, but I believe she's an American who lives in either England or Ireland.
I've listened to quite a few of her videos. I was always confused about it because I would listen to like her videos with the British accent, and then I would hear her American accent. I'm like, wait a minute, this isn't a fake American. This is a real American accent.
Yeah. So yeah, I'd been a big fan of hers before I discovered Dangerous, and so she did it, and I was like, oh, that's really neat. But then, like a week or 2 after this finally came out, Dangerous did the first Jekyll and Hyde, and it was such a different experience because she turned it out really quickly, and she had done it exactly the way I wrote it. Every pause, every comma, every italicized or capitalized or underlined word, she knew how to stress all those. She did it word for word. She did it perfect. It was exactly what I had written for her, and so I was just kind of like, well, I want to pick either Teacup or Dangerous to write for, and it was really no contest. I've got to write for Dangerous because she does it so well, and I could see it growing into a really great story. Even though I had written some more errato stories, I was just kind of like, well, she's gonna, it's gonna be kind of harder to do, and so I still have those to the side. I'll send them to you, Stephen.
Yes.
Just to see what you think, and but yeah, she kind of made it her own, and I was just kind of, well, she's got enough going on. And Dangerous, she, in comparison, was just getting started. She was in her first year. But
now she has a lot of stuff going on.
Now she's got a lot going on, yeah. But I was kind of like, yeah, and she was just so excited. And I knew at the time, Teacup was on her Patreon, she was putting out a lot of warnings like, I don't want to do really sexy stuff right now. She was having some problems in her life, and so she's not gonna, we're not gonna do anything dark and twisted or sexy. And there was Dangerous doing Dr. Jekyll and Ms.Hyde. I'm like, well, sorry, Teacup. I think I know who I'm gonna write for now. And then like a year later, after Dangerous has made Jekyll and Hyde this institution, it's just so big and so great. Then I noticed on Teacup that she did a Jekyll and Hyde for, I think it was last Halloween, and I was like, oh my gosh, Teacup's doing Jekyll and Hyde! Oh, it comes full circle. And so you could.
Where we're talking about Teacup's Jekyll and Hyde series on the Teacup podcast, and then I have another co-host who is less attractive, but she watches movies, so it's kind of like.
So she's better.
Yeah, but
Yes.
So that is kind of funny though that like she ended up doing a Jekyll and Hyde series anyways.
Yes, and I think she wrote it herself. I think, and she made it what so many people have been asking for Angela and Lola to do, is she makes Jekyll and Hyde talk to each other, because she is more kind of a multiple personality, where she's going back and forth. So the listener is still the boyfriend in the Teacup version, but Jekyll is the nice girl and Hyde is the naughty girl, and they're kind of fighting over you, but it's going back and forth constantly. And so it was interesting, but it was extremely different from what Angela and Lola are. So I was kind of like, well, that was interesting, and I love Teacup. She does a lot of fantastic stuff, and her voice is very nice. But I got to stick with writing for Dangerous because
he's only saying that because we're on the Dangerous podcast and we took him out if he said anything else.
No, I gotta keep writing for Dangerous. Oh, it's so much fun.
There's also I found another Dr. Jekyll and Ms.Hyde audio from Easton and Emery. I'm not sure if they're brother and sister or they're boyfriend and girlfriend. But they're basically a team that do audios together. Sometimes they're both on an audio, or sometimes it's one of them doing an audio. Like they'll either work together or they'll make videos separately. But I haven't had a chance to listen to it yet. But I mean, like I like my Ms.Hyde stuff, so
yeah, it's good stuff. And I've been writing a lot and talking more and more with other writers, and it's so much fun to talk to people like Ike and you guys and Net and Dolpha and my newest friend James is writing something, and so yeah, it's a lot of.
I know me and you talked to about a Frankenstein.
Oh yeah.
The Frankenstein series at one point.
Yes.
I realized how busy you were, and you're like, oh, I'll table that.
And I've written so much. Over the holidays, I wrote a few really goofy stuff, and that I just like, this will be fun, because I wrote a Scooby-Doo parody, and I wrote what's the other one? Oh, this corporate vigilante that was really fun, and just a lot of fun, silly stuff. But I've got my big challenge coming up is writing something for Dangerous with the guest star Anything You Want ASMR.
Oh,
and
cool.
So I got them on board, and so I'm writing something for those two, and maybe some other surprises. So, but I keep playing around. But it's funny, whenever I sit down to write something else, I'll find myself thinking, well, have I got the next Jekyll and Hyde, really finished? That's really what I want to work on. Like, okay, let's work on that. But yeah, it's just so much fun, and there's a lot of stuff to play with, and Dangerous is just really inspiring, and really you want to do your best work because she's going to bring her A game, and then it's just so much fun to talk with you guys on Discord and chat and bounce ideas off of and be inspired by as well. So thanks. This is my favorite podcast ever.
Thank you so much for coming on, man. This was a lot of fun. I definitely learned a lot, and yeah, it was just fun getting to talk to you about this series. This was the series that got me into Dangerous. Without this series, I doubt I would really have gone down the Dangerous rabbit hole. And so as you like to say, like, oh, I'm responsible for like Dangerous to come into Discord, I feel like you're responsible for me just enjoying, for kind of not only just getting me to like Dangerous, like I said, but to also help me finally to start doing voice acting. Because
So
without Dangerous, without Dangerous, I don't think I ever would have got the balls to like go ahead and do it.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, I can't wait.
Yeah. So thank you so much for coming, man. I had a great time.
Yeah, it's great. Always great to talk with you guys.
Is there anything you would like to pimp out?
I think I did. I mean, I've spent this whole time. I talked about my brother's podcast and all the Dangerous scripts I've done so far and that I've got coming up. And whenever I get around to it, I'll hopefully finish Dr. Jekyll's private journal and maybe get that out there, and some other stuff I've been writing once I'm ready to let it go out into the world. And I'll let you know.
All right. Well, that concludes today's episode of the Dangerous ASMR podcast. Next week, we will be doing a catch-up episode because we couldn't review the last 4 audios. And so instead of just talking about 6 audios and talking about something else, let's just make that the episode. I am your co-host, Steven, and everybody knows my co-host, Boggle.
Hi.
And we don't know how to end these things ever. Do you want to attempt to end this for us?
Well, it's got to end on a cliffhanger, right?
I don't know. Why don't you give us like a little spoiler for the next episode of Jekyll and Hyde?
All right. For the next episode of Jekyll and Hyde, Deborah